Promises are a very useful tool in JavaScript. I hope you agree with me on this one. But also, they can be extremely tricky and make you fall into one of the common pitfalls when working with promises. So, if you would like to learn what those pitfalls are, and of course, how not to fall into those traps, I highly suggest you to sit back and enjoy this video. Because by the end of it, you, my friend, will not make any of the 4 mistakes that we're about to cover in this video. Greetings, dear friends, fellow programmers, and those aspiring to be. Alright, before we get started with the exciting topic and learning how to evade all of the downfalls when it comes to working with promises, we need to be completely certain that we're on the same page about what promises are. So, what are promises in JavaScript actually? Well, you can think of a promise like a box. And when you create a promise in JavaScript, it's like making an order online and putting it in that box that we mentioned. Now, once that has happened, this order of ours can be in one of the 3 states. The first one is pending. So basically on its way. You have ordered it and you just expect it to arrive at your doorstep sometime. The second option is that everything went well and you have successfully received the order that you have ordered online. And the third option is that something went wrong in the process and that you did not receive your order. Well, it is exactly the same with promises. They can be in one of the 3 states. They can be in the pending state while the promise is still executing. They can be successfully completed or fulfilled, and they can be rejected or they have failed to execute successfully. And basically, that is everything you need to know about promises. Of course, if you would like to really learn more about promises and truly understand what they are, how they work under the hood, how JavaScript treats them, I highly suggest you to spend some time on the videos I have already filmed and put into the playlist dedicated to async programming in JavaScript, and that way you will be able to get the most out of this video and really be able to evade all of the common pitfalls when it comes to working with promises in JavaScript. Now, enough blabbing about different stuff. That is just introduction. Let us finally head towards our real goal of this video, which is to learn how to evade those pitfalls. So let us jump right into it. The first one is forgetting to return a promise. This one might seem like something really basic, and it is, really. It's a very simple problem, but even though it is so simple, it is an issue that I stumbled upon way more times than I'm willing to admit. So let us learn what this is all about and how to prevent it from happening to us. Imagine you're baking a cake, and in order to frost the cake, you need to bake it first. If you do not bake it and wait for it to cool down, you will be in for a lot of mess, my friend, and the cake will look terribly. So you do not want to make that mistake. Similarly, if you forget to return a promise, the code will not wait for it to get resolved. It will just continue going and executing other stuff. So you will end up in a very, very difficult situation to figure out what went wrong, because you might be referencing the result of that action, even though it may not be ready still, because you're not waiting for it to be complete. Let me show you in action what I mean. So here is our mistake in action. Do you see the problem? For all of you with keen eyesight, you can see that we do not return the fetch statement here. This getData method returns nothing. It is just sitting there and invoking the fetch method that is going to really execute and reach out to this endpoint, but Once we invoke getData and enter the then statement, we will be working with nothing because we are not returning anything here. This part right here, once we receive the response, we will enter here, we will parse it into JSON, then we will log the data, but this part right here will basically make no sense because we will get nothing returned from this getData method. So we do not want to let that happen. And the solution to this problem is extremely simple. We just add the return, and as you can see immediately right here, the squiggly line has disappeared. That means that even our IDE knows that this was a bad idea. Once we have done that, everything else should be working as expected. So this was our first example of a common mistake that happens all the time when working with promises. Now, as you can see probably, it's an extremely simple problem with an extremely simple solution. But when you have a huge code base, which you have very often when working with real-life problems and projects, it might get really tricky to figure out what is the issue. So that was just a warm-up for us. Now we're proceeding to some of the more difficult and advanced situations that you want to prevent from happening. So let's jump right to our mistake number 2, which is nesting promises. This problem is very simple to those Russian dolls that get one inside of another, and you can put so many, and it is the same with promises. And you can put as many of those dolls as you like, of course, until you lose track of them. So let me show you in our IDE what I'm talking about. And here we are. Yikes, that's a lot of nesting. This code doesn't look very nice at all. I don't like it. I really don't. So what's wrong with it? Can you see? I mean, we have seen code like this many times before. We have to nest if statements, for loops, methods that are being invoked inside of other methods. Callbacks also in JavaScript very commonly end up looking like this. And yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a very bad thing to have in your code. Now, why is that the case? Well, if you remember what callbacks are, and if you saw the video about callback hell that I posted, you will see that ending up with code that looks just like this is a very serious problem in your code, because it will be terribly difficult to unravel it and untangle it from its very spaghetti-like form into something that is easy to test, extend, update in any way, because it is so tightly coupled and difficult to follow that you just don't want to do it. So that is why callbacks in JavaScript were completely rolled over by promises, because callbacks have to look like this if you want to chain some events in a desired way. But promises allowed us to evade this problem completely. And this is not how it's supposed to be looking like. So let me show you how it should look like and still keep exactly the same behavior. I have to note that. So can you believe that these two are identical methods? They do exactly the same stuff. But when you take a look at them, you can see that the first one contains a lot of nesting, then it is just a real mess. But here we can clearly see the order of things getting executed. So we can see that we are first reaching out to this API, then we are parsing the response into JSON, then we are using the data that was parsed to fetch different data, so reaching out to another API endpoint, then the response of that API endpoint we are parsing, and finally printing the result. So everything right here seems very easy to follow, very easy to navigate, and overall it's a very good piece of code, which cannot really be said about the first example. So that is why you do not want to be nesting your promises, because you already have support for then blocks, and also catch blocks that allow you to completely remove nesting from your promises. In 99% of situations, of course. And there you have it. That was the issue with nesting of your promises, which means that we are heading right to our mistake number 3. And this mistake is ignoring errors. Basically, ignoring errors in executing asynchronous JavaScript is something like driving a car without your seatbelt on. You do have it in the car, it's there, but you're not using it. It is exactly the same with error handling in JavaScript asynchronous code. You have all the support from the JavaScript as a language, but you just decided, I do not care, I'm a very optimistic person, I know everything will work perfectly all the time, which in real life is really not the case. So let's see how we can prevent this issue from backstabbing us. As you can see right here, we still have a very simple situation. We have a simple API call, we convert the response into JSON, and then log the data we received. But what will happen if the process of fetching the response or parsing it into JSON fails for whatever reason? Well, in that case, this piece of code will do nothing except explode and make us miserable as developers. So what we need to do here is very simple and very easy to do. Let me show you what I mean. What we have done here is we have kept the first lines identical to the previous state. We just added this part right here. We have catch statement and a catch block, which we are using to just log the error, and once we really stumble upon error, it will not blow our application up. The final result will be that we can use this error to display a message to an end user that something went wrong, that they should not worry about it, or we can just log the error, but the main point is the rest of the application will work perfectly fine. So your code will be way more bulletproof. You definitely do want to have that in your projects. So please use your seatbelt, in our case catch block, please do. And now we managed to reach our 4th mistake for this video, which is the final mistake I have prepared for you in this video. And this one is mixing async await with promises. And now that we have reached this, it might seem like it's illogical to separate these two, because if you remember and have seen my videos about promises and async await, you will know that async await is just a syntactic sugar for promises. Under the hood, they're identical. There is no difference whatsoever. But if you mix the notations for handling promises and for async await, you will end up with code that just seems wrong and is not going to be very intuitive and will not follow the best practices for coding, certainly. So you do not want to do it. And I, as a friend, ask you not to do it. So let me show you exactly why I'm saying this. So what do we have here? As you can see, we have a simple scenario. We have our fetch statement that is going to reach out to some endpoint, ask for some response data, store it in a variable, then use the JSON method to basically parse that response into JSON, and then chain then statement to that parsed JSON and log the data. Now, when you take a look at this code, you do not have to be aware that there is a problem. This will not blow up or anything like that. It will work, but you're mixing stuff that is not supposed to be mixed. Let me show you what I mean. Now, this right here is an alternative. You can see that we are still doing exactly the same. We still store the response into a variable. We are still awaiting it, but that is everything that is the same. After that, we are awaiting the response conversion into JSON and then just logging the data. Doesn't this look nicer? Because it seems a lot more consistent. it uses the same syntax for doing the stuff that we are doing, and we are even reducing the number of lines that our method has to have in order to work properly. So I really encourage you not to mix things of those sorts. Even if it is not going to break your code maybe, but everybody will definitely hate you for it, and you will get negative points in a company you are working for sure. Even if you are building your personal project, when you show it to somebody who is an experienced developer, they will see it for sure and will not take you as seriously as they would maybe if you were using better syntax. So yeah, that is what I wanted to share here. Now you have learned 4 different mistakes that I've personally seen in action so many times, and I really think that mastering them will significantly reduce the pain of using asynchronous JavaScript, so I hope you found it useful. And of course, as usual, I invite you to sit down now and spend some time practicing this stuff in real life in action, so you would remember it for extended periods of time. And also, if you stumble upon some issues, you can reach out to the comment section of this video, let me know, I'll do my best to help you out, and that way everyone will be happy. To end things, I would like to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you did not already, turn the notifications on so you do not miss any of the upcoming lessons, which are going to be awesome, I have to say. And yeah, that is all I have for you at this point. Thank you for watching and have an amazing day. Happy coding!